but I want to make a nice timely start because I value your time in attending. Thanks very much for choosing to attend my webinar. I know there's lots of them out there, and I know that you're all super busy. So I hope that this is a really worthwhile event for you, and I'd love to hear your feedback at the end. Now, I've timed the webinar about 45 minutes, so that should leave plenty of time at the end to answer any specific questions that you may have. Now, I don't really want this to be, he says, muting himself accidentally, want this to be 45 minutes of me talking at you whilst you have one eye on the workshop and checking emails and just listening in. If you want to do that, I'll be sending you a recording straight after, but I'd like to encourage you to get involved with this live workshop. Put any questions that you may have in the chat, and I'll either address them live or in the Q&A at the end. And just put them in the comments section if you're following the live stream, or into the chat box in Zoom. So we're here to discuss Stand Out to Win, the secret to winning investors and customers. So I think the first thing that it would be useful for me to understand is just to get from you a little bit more about you. So when these two guys pop up, there's no sitting back and eating popcorn like them. It's a chance for you to get involved. So if you'd like to tell me in the chat or the comments section, one thing that you hope to get from this workshop today, that would be really useful. And your company stage, where you're at with your innovative company, would also be useful if you want to put that in the chat as well. We can address that as we go along. Right. So we've got an action-packed 45 odd minutes for you. Is what we're going to be covering. We're going to be discussing some of the common growing pains of technology companies and digging into the 3 big mistakes that founders often make, which kill their commercial success, and importantly, how to avoid them. Then we'll be going through the #1 skill that investors say is the most important for founders to master. And finally, I'll outline for you a new approach to guide the growth of technology companies to win customer and investor attention. Okay, let's see what's coming in. Yeah, good. Right, so first of all, just for me to set the scene, I know that this is advertised as a workshop for technology companies, but for me, technology companies means a lot more than the commonly used description, which is just for digital only companies. For me, a technology company is any product involving a technology component. So it could be a digital product, but also something that has a physical component as well. And that's where I really love to work, in that space where you're bringing something that's brand new to the world, to the market. So with that in mind, let's look at the challenge ahead. And just a sort of a word of a congratulatory statement, really, that growing a technology company is hard. It's really hard, because not only do you have to do everything else that a standard Me Too type company would have to do to build the company, bring in your team, start the foundations of the company, everything, the finances and everything else, but also you've got to build an offer that customers really need. I emphasize that in bold text because there is a big difference between launching an innovation, which is something that customers want, but they can live without. Whereas if you're producing something that companies really need, you're addressing an unsolved problem in a market with something that once introduced is something they can't live without, then you've got the basis of a really powerful offering to the market. But obviously, as well as developing this brand new to the world technology, you've also got to finance its testing and its development right up to the stages where it's a ready to go in the market product. And that obviously drives this environment where founders are out there seeking investment all the time, alongside having to grow the company, manage the team, build the company culture, be the spokesperson for the company, and everything else. And the outputs from this difficult journey that you're taking are the fact that 9 out of 10 early stage technology companies fail. And this may be a failure to return to early stage investors the sort of high returns they're looking for. So there may be still a very viable company underneath, but this obviously takes with them, when these companies fail, the hopes and dreams that the founders had for them. And for me, my personal passion is making sure that science and technology addresses and delivers real world impact. It solves the problems in the world. And when these companies fail, clearly that's when science has gone unfulfilled and these problems are still out there in the world. So that's the passion that I have for doing this, because I believe that science should make a difference in the world, not just create publications that sit on shelves and collect dust. And I've been spending the past 2 years, since I launched my company, working out how best to turn around this statistic and help change the rules of the broken technology investment game. So for some of you, this might be a sort of a bit of a recap, but I think it's worth looking at a little bit, the sort of the technology readiness continuum, which was invented by NASA back in the 70s as a way to aid communication between those who develop new technology and those who ultimately use and benefit from it. And you'll probably recognize that there's often a big gap between what founders want to say and customers want to hear. So it's not just a funding barrier that exists across this continuum, but also a communications barrier, getting the value of new technology concepts across to those who would use and benefit from it. So the technology readiness level scales are broken up into these 9 elements, which describe the process from experimental underpinning research through applied R&D, developing a more and more ready, market-ready prototype, and into technology implementation in the commercial world. And you can describe these stages, these 9 stages, either if you're doing a hardware-based product or if you're doing a software-based innovation as well. The same principles apply. But the reason why I want to focus on this is because the typical amount of funding that is available at both ends of the technology readiness level scale, but not in the middle. So there's a large amount of government funding to pay, or depending on where you are in the world, for basic level research, which underpins new innovations, underpins inventions. And there's large amounts of funding in the commercial world, from early stage investors right through to customers, for a market-ready commercial prototype. But in the middle, you've got this challenge. There's not a lot of funding around in this translational space, where the risk is high and the potential rewards are yet a little bit too far away for the commercial world to quantify and invest in. So this valley of death, which I'm describing here, is where genuine new to the world innovations often fail. And that's obviously something that I want to be addressing. So this valley of death is where technology startups can often go to die through a failure to either attract enough interest from the market at early stage in terms of revenue, or to attract the funding that they need to advance their journey into a commercial reality of their innovation. So let's look at these 3 big mistakes that I believe are responsible for the vast majority of companies ending up in the valley of death. Number 1, spraying and praying. Number 2, being focused solely on the money. And number 3, selling the product or the firm, so selling the wrong things. And I'll talk you through what these mistakes are and how you can avoid them to improve your chances of success. So number 1, spraying and praying. And this is how I describe the sort of traditional approach that many founders go about fundraising. They create a glorious pitch deck and a business plan. They send it out to all the investors with emails that they can find, and they wait for the calls to start rolling in. And initially, it might seem on paper, this is the cheapest and the easiest option to raise funds, but it actually ends up being the most risky bet that founders can take. And it may come from the fact that you believe passionately in what you're doing and your company's plan, and believe that anyone who sees that pitch deck will feel the same way. How can anyone not see how game-changing your company's offer is. But sadly, this isn't the case. And as well, every other startup out there raising funds believes the same. So they all seem to do it. This process of sending cold emails via cold pitch decks via email or by LinkedIn DMs to investors that haven't really been sort of pre-qualified as to their usefulness to the company. And it's the world's worst way to secure investment for your startup. It typically takes founders 18 to 24 months chasing investors up, and the odds are actually unplayable in any other game. There's about 6,000 to 1 chance of success that you'll get an investment from sending out your pitch deck to an investor. And as well as that, it misses out on the routes by which investors get about 90% of their deals done. So it's a very, very small target, and there's lots of people firing arrows at it in this very unfocused approach. So to give you an idea, this is my representation of the risky bet that you're making if you follow this approach. You're betting, the years of work you put into your startup, the life savings, other investors and friends and family investments that you've got into a game where you've got, based on the strength of your pitch deck and your business plan, where you've got a 1 in 6,000 chance of success. Now, when you look at a typical investment firm at an early stage, they receive about 3,000 to 4,000 pitches every year. And this applies to LinkedIn direct messages too. I spoke to an investor the other week who receives about 20 DMs with pitch decks every week. He has to employ someone just to screen his LinkedIn feed just to get through it. So from these 3,000 to 4,000 pitches received every year, just pop into the comments if you like, how many do you think are actually funded from this approach? Okay, so let's see what comes in. But from my experience and talking with early stage investors non-stop over the past 2 years, I can tell you the actual number is about 6. So that's where your 600 to 1 odds come in. And then when you look at the fact that this approach to securing finance makes up less than 10% of deals, that's where you get the 6,000 to 1 figures from. And if you're interested in a specialist workshop that I run called Beat the Odds, where we go through the different options to raise significant amounts of funding and outline a new approach that I call Driven, then have a quick scan of this QR code and you can register for the next event. It's running, I think, on Monday, the 20th of February. It runs every month. Now, big mistake number 2, being focused only on the money. Now, the problem is when you do this, there's a couple of issues. And I'll illustrate that with a diagram in a moment. But what you're doing here is you're basically solely focused on the money you need to achieve your next particular development milestone. And therefore you're living funding round to funding round. And because your company is reliant on this cash injection to continue developing, then this creates this mindset that the money that you're after is the prize. Where in reality, it's the other way around. It's your offer, your team, your company, the opportunity you're bringing to investors. That's the prize. And when you start valuing it as such, then it changes who gets to see your pitch deck and the amount of sort of pre-work and pre-due diligence you'll do to make sure that the investor who receives your pitch deck is actively investing and invest in the typical sort of companies that your opportunity is in. And the other problem with this short-term thinking is that you lose sight of your ultimate aim. You get caught up in the fact that the amount of money you're going for the next development milestone, forgetting that your ultimate aim is commercial success. And the focus should be on shortcutting your path to that, not configuring yourself to meet the needs of the next funder who's got money available. And this makes you obviously very vulnerable as well, because if you don't get that funding, you run out of cash and you end up in the valley of death. And none of us want that. But when you apply it to the kind of fundraising scenario, it also gives away that the power you have, the power and potential that you have in your investment opportunity to those investors who have the cash that you're looking for. And it gives away the power to them because they've got all the money that you need, you think you need in order to advance. Now, big mistake number 3, this is common with I see in founders who are deeply passionate about the technology, and they've been, they've been deeply involved in the development of this early stage solution to a problem in the market. But the problem is that the passion for the technological solution itself comes across in the way that many founders communicated with the market. A mismatch really between their sort of belief in the passion and the belief they have in their solution will provide a technical solution, it will work technically, whereas what the investors are looking for is the confidence and passion that your business model, that your overall approach will succeed. And when you end up talking about what the technology is, how it works, how innovative, how clever it is, then you end up risking losing the attraction, you're losing the interest of your audience, either investors or customers. They don't need to know how the technology works. What they need to know is what it can do and for whom. They don't need to understand it. And when you start to sort of can talk through the details of it, that you can often end up losing your audience in that conversation. Especially when you pick apart what investors actually value the most in an opportunity, a brand new opportunity brought to them, then you realize that selling the size of the problem, the size of the market opportunity, the size of the problem you're solving is a much better way to attract investor interest, because that for them is more important than your solution and how different it is to what's currently out there. It's even more important than your world-class team. And it's most of all important to describing how the technology works. So this, from my experience, is how you should present your offer to investors. It's clarifying the size of the problem and in which markets that it solves for, not how your technology is different, better, faster, cheaper, etc. And these 3 mistakes, are, like I said before, are the reason that 9 out of 10 technology startups end up dying at the bottom of the valley of death. And what I would want to avoid happening are these things: that you run out of money before you secure your next funding round, that you could get investment by the old school approach, but without an enormous amount of luck and a lot of resources going into it, it'll take you years. And I've seen founders take multiple years, up to 4 years. I think one company was asking me to get involved, 4 years without significant amounts of investment in their company. And I don't know about you, but it's very difficult for my company to survive for the next 4 years without income. The longer it takes you to secure finance, the longer it takes you to get that product to market, then the greater the chances are that somebody else will come in with an alternative way of solving the problem in the market that you've identified. They'll beat you to the punch and get a product on the market faster than you can. And obviously what I want to avoid as well is founders taking so much time, effort and energy in the sort of the fundraising, the market building and the fundraising approach, that they have a personal burnout affecting them and their family members. Oh, what happened there? So if we go back to the main objective, propelling your company over the valley of death into commercial success, then how do you go about getting across? Well, I'm going to use, here's you at the start of the valley, or the research side, having developed an innovative product. How do you get that over the developmental stages and into the valley of death? Ooh, into the valley of death, over the valley of death and into the commercial market. My bad. So in an ideal world, you would have the funding equivalent of this vehicle. And you might remember this from the Batman films, developed by Wayne Enterprises to assist the army building bridges. So you power this car over the area to be crossed, towing with it a cable to allow the bridge to be constructed afterwards. And that's the equivalent in the the funding world of getting one source of funding or one funder that can propel your innovation from early TRL, early technology readiness level, right across the valley of death and land in the market. And even if you could find such a funder, you're going to need the services of a billionaire philanthropist just to do it. So in an ideal world, that's how you do it. You jump over in one fell swoop, but in reality, that doesn't happen. What do you do instead? So you start building a bridge. If you don't have a Batmobile or a billionaire backer, then you start to build a bridge to the market, building it step by step. And that means accessing small amounts of funding to advance the readiness of your prototype. It could be through grants, crowdfunding, friends and family. But building a bridge based solely on the money that you can get to develop the next version of your prototype is what you're doing if you're focused only on the money. Mistake number 2. So avoid making this mistake by engaging with the market as soon as you possibly can, almost regardless of the readiness level of your offer. Take a leaf out of the pages of the business building book that digital companies use and test and engage with the market at the earliest possible stage to see whether you're onto a good thing and build up this audience of would-be customers who see the value in what you're doing. And this is the approach behind my approach to marketing a technology company. So you're building a bridge from both sides of the valley at the same time. So as well as accessing funding for the next prototype, you're also engaging and letting the commercial world know why you're doing it, the problem you're solving in the market, and why your company is best positioned to solve that problem. So, and that is equivalent really to starting a lighthouse on one side of the Valley of Death, broadcasting it is what you're doing in a certain way, which we'll get to later, so that you can attract the attention of would-be investors and would-be customers in the commercial world on the other side of the Valley of Death. And we'll go into exactly how you do that in a bit later on, because the temptation is to start broadcasting your lighthouse by telling the world how great your innovation is, how wonderful your early stage customers are, your track record is, and telling them all about your solution and how it works. But as we said before, that's focusing on selling the wrong thing. That isn't the way that you can attract interest from the commercial world in would-be and build up a market of would-be users. Because everyone else, the competition for space is extremely congested. Whether it's 3,000 to 4,000 pitch decks being sent into a investment company every year, or whether it's the fact that the amount of messages and adverts we get exposed to every day is ever increasing. Both of these mean that your message is going to have to stand out and cut through the level of noise that's in the market already. And talking about what you've got just isn't enough. That's not enough to raise the interest and attract the attention of investors to care about why you're doing it and what the problem is you're solving, rather than how great your technological solution might be. So in that market, how do you stand out? And this takes me into the number one skill that research I've done with early stage investors says is the most important skill that all founders should master in order to attract their attention. And you start by your ability, what the number one skill is your ability to tell a compelling story that makes investors or customers care about why you're doing what you're doing. And an engaging story isn't just useful in securing investor interest, but it also gives them a chance to see how you'll attract world-class talent, business partners, build a customer base. Now, your story has got to be compelling enough that it creates an emotional response in the audience that's receiving it. It's got to be bold and visionary, but it's also got to be backed by data. And if your story is currently focused on the research journey you've been on, how much it's taken you to get to where you are now, and the combined expertise of your world-class team and your scientific advisory group, then you might want to revisit this story to make it more attractive and engaging for the markets you're trying to attract. So my approach is to help you tell that compelling story that resonates, is harmonious, and allows you to be seen for the rock star that you are, using my musical metaphors there. And why this approach works, when you look at storytelling, we seem to be sort of hardwired into understanding stories. And when they're told correctly and put the audience at the center of the story, then neuroscience shows that activity lights up in their brains as if they were experiencing a story for themselves. And it kind of creates that emotional engagement and that emotional response that you're looking for from the audience, because without that, no response, you've got no action. So, again, I can underpin this with, this approach to marketing takes soundings from a brilliant book by Simon Sinek called Starting with Why. And he goes through how the best companies in the world go about marketing themselves. And it isn't from telling the world what it is they do. So for example, if you use the version of the example of Apple, Apple's marketing is not being based on here's the iPhone, here's the iPad, here's how it works, here's the specifications, etc. It's not on what they do. It's not even on how they do it. User-centered design and innovative materials and everything else that goes along with it. They don't really tell that story. At the core to their marketing, where they always start with, and how they used to when they were leaders in marketing, was telling their telling their story and their marketing based around their why. Why do they exist? And Apple's example is they used to use the tagline of think different. So what they're doing there is they're attracted by telling stories around their why, their think different. They're attracting people to the brand who also think differently. So that ownership and membership of this sort of club via the sharing and the showing of your Apple logo on the back of your mobile phone case, which is a big hole cut out, is you as a consumer making a strong statement that you are also someone that thinks differently. And that's how they attract such a loyal following to their brand. So they're marketing their why they do what they do, rather than how they do it or what products they sell, is at the core of a good marketing approach. And it's something that you can use for your startup as well. Your why for your startup can be determined by asking yourself these sorts of questions. So what's your passion? Why are you doing this? What got you started? What level of awareness of the problem in the world that your startup is out there to solve motivates you to keep doing what you're doing on your founder's journey? What's the end goal? What does the world look like with this problem in the market solved? And importantly, why should anyone care about this? If your innovation is merely a minor increment to what's already out there, it's going to be difficult for you to convey the level of innovation that's actually in your startup and make people care about even seeing your pitch deck and your materials. And the goal really of this approach to marketing is not the traditional approach whereby you're segmenting your lists and you're targeting them with specific messages and you're hitting them again and again until they finally submit and respond. It's more that you're advertising to the world via this lighthouse approach of why you exist. So the goal becomes doing business with people who understand your why. And that's how you go about attracting people to your cause, is by talking about your underlying purpose, your why. So that should be at the heart of your story. Alongside that, in your story, should be what this problem is, why it matters, how much it matters, what's the impact of the problem in the market, and to whom it matters. Your passion for that, achieving that story, can then come through in a much more coherent and compelling way that you're able to show, which is what investors want to see, that you're committed to seeing this entrepreneurial journey through and achieving the ultimate end goal of why you started the company in the first place. And then the last component of your story, alongside showing what the market opportunity is and your personal passion for seeing it through, should be to show why you're the best place, your team, your approach is the best place in the world to take it forward. Because this is a global market. So show them why this is the best solution for them as a potential investment opportunity. So, this approach to marketing, which I call Stand Out to Win, is designed to build an audience of willing buyers. So identifying what customers care about through customer validation at the earliest possible stage. So as I said, taking that leaf out of the digital business building book, as soon as you've got an idea of the problem you want to solve, you can then start to put out marketing materials or a landing page website to gather and capture people's details who are interested in the problem that you've just talked about. And customer validation isn't about, we've got this thing, going out there saying, we've got this thing, do you want to buy one? That's not customer validation. That's just people being nice to you. Customer validation is asking those questions about the problems that your audience faces, understanding how big a problem it is, understanding the impacts of it, understanding what other solutions are, what other methods have been tried to solve this problem, so that you can really see where there is a gap for your innovation. And building this audience as soon as you can, through the development of detailed customer personas that describe your ideal customer, will help you sort of get a much bigger, much more grain and detailed picture on exactly who you should be targeting and who you should be understanding, who you should be talking to get customer validation done.
Yeah, quick.
Oh, just do that. Okay. The third pillar of the Stand Out to Win approach is developing that compelling story that creates an emotional response in the buyer based around those elements that I talked about before. And the final part of it is putting it into play in a way that creates meaningful content to promote the company based around the problem that you're solving, not around what your solution is, how it works, and what the technology that underpins it all. Why does this work? Well, as I said before, if you want people to engage with you, then put them at the heart of your story. That's the thing that will create that kind of why should I answer that why should I care problem, and create an emotional response in the people that are seeing it, that they should care about what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it. When you talk about your solution, faux pas there, when you talk about your innovation on social media or through other news medias, target your content as the thing that connects you to the prospect, your potential new customer, which is the problem. And this is where I'll draw upon a great bunch of folks from an organization called Maverick, who specialize in helping people sell on social media or social selling. And they talk you through this kind of example which underpins all of our decision making as humans. We start off with a problem we want solved. We then move through the thinking to decide what success is going to look like for us having this problem solved. We then decide if out of the all different ways there are of solving this problem, which one is most likely for us to take. And then we go out into the market and we start to search for alternative solution providers. And why this is so powerful is because when you look at the total market of being 100% of people equals everyone who could potentially engage or benefit from your innovation, then the percentage of people that are out there in the market actively looking for your solution and comparing you to alternatives is only 6%. So if you're talking about what your product is and how it works and how much better it is than all the competitive or alternative approaches that are out there, you're only ever going to be engaging about 6% of the total market of buyers. But when you start to focus on the problem, so your marketing content is focused on illustrating how big a problem in the market there is, showing how that you understand the impact of that problem, how severe it is and how urgent it is for your prospects, then you're able to access up to 70% of your total market that could ever be interested in your service. The other 30%, those that don't know they have a problem, it's not worth wasting your time trying to convince people. Excuse me. But by targeting your content on the problem, you can massively expand the sort of the level of reach you can get into your potential market to engage those who have realized they've got a problem, but they haven't yet gone through all the thought steps and decision-making process to come up with a picture of the ideal solution they want. But if your messages land on their desk at that point, then they're much more likely to engage with you rather than the tiny 6% of the market, which is out there shopping for a solution. Which I've just illustrated. So this next bit is just the bit where I introduce myself so that you can see who this random man on the internet is. I'm not going to be taking you through my career history, so don't worry, but I just want to give you a little bit of background as to why it is that I do what I do to help power technology companies to their next funding destination. So my mission is to help share the knowledge that's being used to build more unicorns. And I've done this through spending about 22 years working at the intersection between science and technology, business and funding, building up the knowledge to help make science make an impact in the world. And I set up the company PVM Consulting to help more innovative companies become commercially successful, as the road to building a unicorn or even a thriving company is claiming far too many casualties. And my business model, I'm committed to freely sharing as much of this knowledge as I can through daily posts on LinkedIn and through these types of workshops, so that talented and passionate people like yourselves can build more unicorns, more billion-dollar valuation companies. And if I share something which interests you and you understand it and have resources to go off and implement it for yourself in your company, great. Another successful science and technology venture in the world. So just think of me, drop me a mention when you're rich and famous. But if you do want some help with what you've heard today, then that's what I'm here to do. And I formed my company in September 2020 after my recovery from a near-death experience with a 50-mile-an-hour Mercedes 2 months before the pandemic. And in the recovery of my mental and physical health, I was diagnosed with adult ADHD. For me, this explains an awful lot, and it's kind of strange how I've developed this company with offers which do short, sharp, impactful consulting interventions to help propel my science and technology clients to more commercial success. Two of me on the screen at one time, that's never a good thing. Okay, so for those that do want to achieve results more quickly than going on yourselves and learning from your experiences and making mistakes as you go along, this is how I typically work with founders. A 3-stage process to help get you safely to your next funding destination. And I break up this journey over the valley of death into individual steps. So that could be market launch. It could be getting to the next level of funding. It could be new market entry or developing a new product. And I use this analogy of taking a flight, that what I do is, in my offer Fit to Fly, is help companies assess, like a pilot would, undertake the pre-flight checks for the journey to make sure that the vessel that they're in is fit to make the journey to the next step they've planned. And it also kickstarts marketing for the paying passengers you're going to need for the journey based on what you have now. And that's my first offer, which I call Flight Fit to Fly. From there, we set a clear destination on where the company's going next, whether that's proving your concept to win a grant, demonstrating market validation of your business model for an investor, etc., etc. And I help you via a series of interactive workshops very quickly assemble that strategic plan with the buy-in of your team that will help you make the journey to your next destination. But where you need additional help alongside your existing team, that's where my final offer comes in, where I bring in specialist resources from my network to complement your team and help you deliver on that flight plan to reach this destination in the most efficient fashion possible. So if Fit to Fly is the idea, then flight plan is how to implement it. Final approach is any expert support you need to safely land at your next funding destination. So in Fit to Fly, the initial part of my work, what that means is assembling everything that you have to date: sales, customers, vision, marketing, investment, everything you've already got as building blocks of your company. And I use that in a series of workshops to pull together that really compelling story that creates an emotional response in your audience, so that you've got the best presentation of your company right now, so that your chances of securing interest from investors or building a market of potential customers is greatly enhanced. This works. I talk about client case studies on my LinkedIn all the time. So this is what I did for one client to generate this compelling and engaging story to help them start to build a market of would-be customers for their offerings, and also for them to get intelligence on what different stakeholder groups in their quite broad markets were looking for. And you can see the quote there from the CEO, that with my help, they've rapidly accelerated their process for launching valuable offers from the company. They suddenly, after 3 years of work, in 3 months, they can suddenly see how it all fits together, and they've got a coherent plan going forward. And that's what I do. And if you feel like you could benefit from more help in implementing anything that I've covered today, or you just want to chat to me about the stage of your innovative company, then send me a message on LinkedIn, or you can put a short 15-minute meeting into my diary directly on the screen using that QR code. Now, I've got some additional content for you to help you on your journey as a thank you for attending today's workshop. And what I've done is assembled a bunch of resources. So a copy of my approach to engaging investors, a video on the pre-flight clarity for your technology company, an exercise you can go through with walked kind of video instruction that you can determine your own company's level of product market fit, which is probably the single most important factor in securing the success of your technology company, alongside a few links and the slides from recordings from today. So I will send this out as an email that I send out later on today, alongside a quick survey for you to let me know what you thought of today's workshop. And in the meantime, all I ask today is to support what I'm doing to share the knowledge that can build more unicorns. Follow me on LinkedIn, follow my company page as well, PVM Consulting Limited, on your social media platform of choice. And please engage, like, comment, share the content that I put out. If there are any particular topics that you'd like to know more about, the subjects for future workshops or things I can put into this resource folder, then do let me know. So that's it for today. Bang on time. I've shown you how important talking about the problems you solve for in growing attractive markets is in building that market of willing buyers and investors. We've looked at the 3 common mistakes that kill commercial success for startups, from the perils of spraying and praying and all the time that's wasted doing that, to focusing only on the money, forgetting to engage the market as an early stage as possible, or confusing investors or customers by focusing on the wrong areas in your messaging. And finally, I've outlined the 1 critical skill investors say is key to getting investment and attracting their interest, and outlined how my offer can help you develop that compelling story rapidly as a first step. So we've now got bang on 15 minutes for questions. So it's over to you. Thank you very much, Tara. Much appreciated. Yeah, if you're watching the live recording of this and you've got some questions, please put them into the comments and I will get back to them and answer them offline. So for now, I think I will bring it to a close. Thank you again for attending. I will follow up by email with a link to those resources I talked about. And if anyone would like to discuss those with me, you know where I am. I'm on LinkedIn all the time. Many thanks.